Mom and Dad were gone. Only now there were people calling all the time, checking in to see how I was, asking me if I wanted to meet up. It was like some mass email had gone out and everybody was going out of their way to prove to me that we still lived in a caring universe. But I didn't want any of it. The good thing about everyone's post-disaster catonia was that nobody wanted to be intrusive. They'd express concern or issue an invitation, but they were more than understanding if you said, I just want to be alone right now. So that's what I did. I didn't rant like a crazy person. I didn't tell them to F off. I didn't ask them what the point was. I just said I wanted to be alone. And then when I was alone, I ranted like a crazy person, told the world to F off, and wondered what the point was. The only exception I made was this boy Peter, because he was so persistent. It was almost surreal. He made it seem like us getting together was a belief he had. So finally I told myself, what the heck. I made him come out to Brooklyn because there was no way I was going into Manhattan until it straightened itself out. My initial impulse was to go save it while it was... My initial impulse to go save it was gone. The more footage they showed on the news, the more horror stories we heard, the less I wanted to be there. I would just stay in Brooklyn and listen to my Moulin Rouge soundtrack on repeat until the happy times were here again. Or until I had to go to school, whichever came first. Mom was calling 2 or 3 times a day. It was probably costing them more than their plane tickets to keep in touch. She wanted to come home as soon as possible, but I kept telling her I was fine, that she and my father should stick to the original plan and take care of my grandmother and let all the other people who were stranded in Korea get home first. It was a testament to my respect for Peter that I actually found a clean shirt and a relatively clean pair of jeans to wear for our night out. Truth was that I wasn't remembering much of what he looked like or what we talked about at Mitchell's. I remember thinking he was cute, if a little young, but that was enough. I also sensed that he was as trapped in his house as I was trapped in mine, because I would get emails from him like, Jasper, only 8 more hours. I will be the guy in the brown t-shirt and the Levi's. Also, I will be the one ringing your doorbell. If that's not enough to recognize me, I could also have a tulip between my teeth or behind my ear, if you would find that more aesthetically pleasing. I have both florist and a dresser on standby awaiting your answer. See you soon. Say 7 hours and 55 minutes, Peter. 7 hours and 55 minutes later, he was at my door. His t-shirt really fit him well, and he was boyish in a Ewan McGregor kind of way, albeit without the brogue. I took him to Olive Vine. I knew there was a chance of bumping into some of the people I'd been dodging, but I figured that would be a risk anywhere. It's not like anyone was leaving the neighborhood. Flags were starting to pop up everywhere, along with the missing signs. It was like we'd cleared away all the papers that had been blown over and were placing them with our own. I was relieved because clearly Peter wasn't a closet case, and he seemed to know what some of the dating rules were. Not that I was seeing it as a date, more as a diversion. It's not like I was going to put him in my pocket and take him up to college with me, and he didn't seem to like the random hookup type. A shame, or maybe not. I asked him all the things I felt I should ask, like where he'd been when everything happened. He told me he was waiting to buy a Bob Dylan record, which I thought was pretty funny. The times, they did a change, I said, but his laugh was more polite than anything else. I chalked it up to the fact that you had to be a twisted like me to find the humor in the situation. Usually I treated dates like they were chess matches, trying to plan my moves a little bit ahead, carefully deciding which conversational pieces to deploy, willing to sacrifice pawns of small talk if it would get my opponent to fall in love with my king. But this was a different kind of board, a different set of rules, almost like all the pieces had been knocked off, and we were both trying to agree on where they'd been before. I wasn't having any fun with it, which wasn't his fault. Fun was included in the pieces of me that had disappeared. He talked about seeing things happen, about being near, and while he expressed a momentary jealousy that I hadn't had to go through that, I think we both knew that it was better to be an unharmed witness than a guy who slept through it and still had to deal with the aftermath. One of the things the terrorist attack has done was to send us all into these sliding door scenarios. All of these what ifs. What if I'd gotten up earlier that morning? What if I'd decided to go to the Battery Park for a run? I'd done that once in 1998 before the SATs. What if, along the way, I'd taken the spot on a crowded subway car that some guy who worked at the World Trade Center was supposed to take? So the door slid closed on him, and he ended up getting to work late enough to be saved. Baloney. All of it. Complete baloney. And you couldn't help but wonder why your mind went there anyway. Was it to exert control or to find comfort in the fact that there wasn't really all that much control, after all? By the time I tuned back in, Peter was talking about crying because people at Starbucks were being extra nice. The fact that he could be so moved only reinforced my own emptiness. When he asked me how I felt, I didn't lie. It didn't seem like the kind of thing to lie about. I found myself telling him, or at least trying to, about how the emptiness worked. How you withdraw from something and you feel the distance inside of you, as well as outside of you. But it was clear he wasn't really understanding, and that made me wonder yet again why I'd agreed to meet up with him. Clearly there wasn't much I could give him. There wasn't much he could give me. So you just withdrew? He asked me. And I couldn't convey to him the extent of it, so I just said, not totally. Then, since that didn't seem like enough, I added, I mean, you can't let it get to you. Because if you let it get to you, then the terrorists will have won. I wish it was as simple as that, but it wasn't. It's not really about them, really, I said. It's just about me. I knew how monstrous that sounded. I knew September 11th wasn't about me, but my reaction to September 11th was entirely about me. Peter quickly changed the subject to my parents, and I gave him the update. I was totally running out of steam until he drifted off. And then, when he came back and said, if we stop having sex, then the terrorists will have won. Normally, when someone says something like that, it's a total bad pickup line. But it was obvious that wasn't Peter's intention. I liked him more for it. He asked me about school. I told him I had no idea when it was going to start. Yet another thing I had no idea about. Like any high school student, he had this fascination with college. I found myself getting nostalgic, as September 11th wasn't really going to be this big before-after dividing line in our lives. I was sorry that I didn't have at least a bit of high school in the after. High school actually seemed longer ago now because of what had happened.